At your precinct caucus or convention, there are two ways to elect delegates to represent you. The first way is holding an election where everyone present votes for at-large delegates. In theory, 51% of people voting could elect 100% of the delegates. This process is the default when there are more spots available than there are people who want to be delegates. But if more people want to be delegates than there are open spots for, that's when we go into the walking subcaucuses. If the number of people who want proportional voting is enough to elect even one delegate, then we have to use proportional voting. A walking subcaucus is the DFL's proportional voting process to make sure everyone is properly represented. When you come out of this process, it should give you a set of delegates that represent all of the viable groups who were present. Across many precincts or districts, it's easy to see how this method of proportional voting leads to conventions that better represent the people they serve. When the walking subcaucus process begins, the chair will open nominations for participants to form subcaucuses. Each caucus needs to list the name of a candidate or be uncommitted. This candidate could be someone running for local office, the state legislature, or Congress. Caucuses can also list an issue they care about. Once everyone has had a chance to nominate a subcaucus, the chair closes nominations and then assigns an area to the room for each subcaucus to assemble with its nominator. Sometimes volunteers will bring signs for their subcaucus. Then you'll choose which subcaucus you want to represent you, and you'll walk to that part of the room assigned to the subcaucus. There is a time limit, usually 10 to 15 minutes, and subcaucus leaders will try to get people to join their subcaucus. After the time limit, everyone pauses in the subcaucus they've joined, and everyone gets counted in each subcaucus. A subcaucus has to be viable to elect delegates. To be viable, the subcaucus has to have enough participants relative to the total number of participants to elect one delegate. So take the total number of participants, divide it by the number of delegate slots available, and then round up to the nearest whole number. That whole viability number is the minimum number of people needed in a subcaucus to elect delegates. If all of the subcaucuses are big enough to be viable, then that's it. We assign delegates based on proportional formula. But if any subcaucuses aren't viable, they get dissolved, and then we have another walk. Members of dissolved subcaucuses can join another subcaucus, or go to the uncommitted subcaucus, which is always viable. Some other subcaucus participants may redistribute to optimize their delegate counts. Once the time limit passes, we pause everything and we count the participants again. At this point, subcaucuses get delegates and alternates based on a formula. The viability number comes back here. So we'll divide the number of people in each subcaucus by the viability number down to 3 decimal points. That's how many delegates the subcaucus will get. It's usually a fraction. Each subcaucus gets the whole number of delegates, and then the subcaucuses with the highest remainders will get the last delegate or two. Ties are decided by a coin flip. The last 2 delegates are allocated based on which caucuses have the biggest remainders. Here, our top 2 caucuses each get 1 more delegate. Each subcaucus will decide by majority vote to elect its delegates. They can choose to vote at large, additional mini walking subcaucuses, ranked choice voting, or any other method the subcaucus prefers. Walking subcaucuses are a great way to make sure everyone's voice is properly represented. The DFL uses this method at precinct caucuses, local organizing unit conventions, congressional district conventions, state conventions, state central committee meetings, and more. And now, you know how to use it too.